So welcome. This is the CSUF Center for Creativity and Critical Thinking. My name is Dr. Dory Barnett, and this is the third in a series of 4 inclusive behavior education sessions. And this week and the next session at the end of April are going to focus on evidence-based PBIS practices. Today, we're going to focus more on Tier 1 classroom-wide PBIS practices, or actually it's called evidence-based classroom management practices. And then our follow-up and last session will be more Tier 3, where we're looking at function-based behavior interventions. So that will be fun too. Anyway, I really appreciate you being here. And like I was saying earlier, it's participatory. You're welcome to join in. In fact, I think on many of these topics, you are the experts. You're in the classroom. My background, I was a classroom teacher at the high school level in a continuation high school. Then I became a counselor, and I've been a school psychologist for a number of years. I transferred to Orange County Department of Education, where I was the coordinator for 7 years for PBIS positive behavior intervention and supports. And I got to participate in the rollout of the statewide MTSS grant. So some of you may have participated in that. So those are my passions. I really like behavior intervention. So let's get started. All right. Right now we have a small enough group that I think we can do this just all together rather than divide up into breakouts. So if you don't mind, just please briefly introduce yourself, say your name. I assume you're all in schools, but if you're not, if you're a student or whatever else brings you here today, just say your name, your role, whatever that is, the grade level that you're sort of focused on, or the student population that brings you here, and something you love about what you do. All right, any volunteers?
I'll go.
Thank you. Thanks, Ryan.
So my name is Ryan Hertz. I'm currently doing my student teaching placement in Santa Ana at Carr Intermediate. I currently have one academic support class where children just come to get support for other classes, and I'm also teaching 3 periods of 7th grade mathematics.
Oh, awesome!
And it's for mild moderate supports.
So I was just going to ask if you're in special education. So you're going to be a special ed teacher?
Yeah, I'm working on in my last
wonderful.
semester for a special education specialist credential.
Good for you. Oh gosh.
And I'm definitely facing a lot of challenges in my classroom as far as behavior.
Yeah.
Something I love about it is I love everything about it. I love the challenge of the kids. They're just so interesting to me, and it's just fun to really get a breakthrough if you find out what motivates them or what interests them and be able to harness that, and they change pretty quickly. Or when you build rapport with them, I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Everybody I know is like, how can you do that? Because I tell them stories about my kids.
That's a good energy.
I think I just empathize a lot with their situation. When I was in secondary education, I really didn't like it and had a lot of behaviors myself. So I kind of empathize with what they're doing.
Oh, I love your energy. We're lucky to have you. Thank you. Meg, how about you?
I'm Meg McLean. I'm an intern, a 2nd-year intern. I'm teaching right now kindergarten and 1st grade at a non-public school in Irvine. So we kind of get all of the students from all over Orange County up, even like Riverside County, that the districts say we're all done with. So it's a lot of behaviors. As Ryan and everybody else here can probably understand. Something that I love about what I do is I don't know what's going to happen every day, because it's always in
the unpredictability.
My schedule is predictable and my assistant knows what we do, but we never know what we're going to walk into every day. So
you like that? That's good. That's great. Gosh, 2 emerging teachers. That's so exciting. All right. The next person, I can't see your full name. It says Disney at the end. Would you mind introducing yourself?
I'm sorry.
For
I
last
forgot to
time.
change my name. I will in a minute. My name is Mirna Colocho, and I
Oh.
currently work at Walt Disney School. That's why you see Disney
Oh,
over there.
okay.
I am the parent involvement liaison for now, which means that I work with parents and I provide classes for parents, but I recently completed my credential specialist for mild moderate. So I'm
Excellent.
special ed.
Thank
I
you.
am looking forward to perhaps beginning as a guest teacher, as a substitute teacher, and then eventually when a position comes up to become a mild moderate in a special ed class. That's what I'm looking forward to, or RSP. And I
Excellent.
do enjoy working with children with behavior problems. And I know some people don't understand, like Ryan says, but I do like fifth graders or sixth graders. I know they're challenging, but those are the ones that require the more love, and they just don't know how to ask for it. And we guide them, and we, model for them good behavior. I like that.
Thank you,
I
Myrna.
do have a small group that I teach every afternoon. Just different kiddos that we do reading, but I do enjoy working with kids with behavior problems. That's why these classes are so interesting to me. Thank
Okay,
you.
well, thank you for joining. Pam.
Hello again, Dr. Barnett. It's so
Hello.
nice to see you. As I previously mentioned, I'm still a student at Cal State Fullerton. I'm gonna be graduating this semester, and hope I have my interview for my credential program next week. So hopefully I'll be knowing soon whether I'm entering. And I'm on the elementary track, focusing on TK, kinder, first, second, third. Anywhere in there would be my wheelhouse. Something I love about what I do. This is a question on the interviews. So there is just a connection that I have with the children that I've always noticed. My mother's a teacher, as I may have mentioned before, and I was always paired with the child who needed that little extra push. And I was always able to connect with them on a deeper level and find the way to connect with them so that they could learn to the best of their ability. So I love the challenge of finding what works for each child and meeting them where they're at.
Well said. That will definitely get you at the top of the interview.
Good thing you're recording this so I can remember.
Thank you so much. I'm inspired by all of you. That's great that you're here. So our goals for this session is we're going to briefly identify key features of, I'm assuming you've all heard of school-wide PBIS, but classroom-wide PBS is applying those science-based, evidence-based features of behavior change to the classroom setting. So we're going to focus today on research by Randy Simonson et al. And they have developed through decades of research 5 evidence-based classroom management practices. And they're actually very simple. You might think, well, I could do this, and you can. We're going to hone in on a couple of things depending on our time, like how to structure the classroom, how to give positive praise and effective error correction. And hopefully we'll get to develop an action plan based on a classroom management self-assessment. If we don't get that far, I definitely will be sharing the tools that you can use for yourself or a colleague to sort of self-evaluate your ability for classroom management and how to focus in on areas that might need improvement and develop an action plan. So it looks like at least 3 out of 4 of us are in special ed, and so we're often consulting with other classrooms. So I think this will, and for Pam, for all of us in education. So this should be helpful. I like this little slide's a little bit old, but I actually was linked or my first introduction to these 5 evidence-based classroom management practices was about 7 years ago. I was in Chicago at the National PBIS Leadership Forum, and Brandy Simonson was leading the keynote. So I just loved her PowerPoint, and I love her work. And so this isn't that sophisticated anymore, but she asked, what kind of students can display problematic behavior? Because sometimes we assume that those students should be in special education for some reason just because of their behavior. But really, the answer is all students, right? We've all experienced that throughout any grade level, throughout any level of education, even GATE students, with and without labels, can exhibit problematic behavior from time to time. So this is not just a special education issue. It is an education issue for all of us, because without the behavior that we need to be ready to learn, how can we teach? So we all need to be experts in this. This is a nice quote by a researcher named Ken McIntosh. He's at the University in Oregon. He's one of the leads in PBIS. And he found that he did a lot of research on what makes effective classrooms, how do you sustain PBIS, how do you sustain MTSS, and the strongest predictor for sustained implementation and sustained improvement of student outcomes was implementation of classroom PBIS systems. So this is a pretty powerful statement to me. So it just sort of reinforces that it boils down to knowing and practicing some of these evidence-based classroom management practices. So what is classroom-wide PBIS? So it basically refers to us as educators utilizing research-based, evidence-based practices. What that means is not just pulling things out of a hat, although that might work too based on your intuition, but basically knowing and applying research evidence-based practices to establish a predictable, positive, and equitable learning environment. Hello, you might want to mute, please, if you're just joining. So why classroom-wide PBIS? So again, decades of research has demonstrated that implementing positive and proactive rather than punitive, PBIS focuses almost exclusively first on prevention and positive proactive practices. And this research shows that this contributes to a positive learning environment, and also educator wellness and positive student social, emotional, and behavioral functioning. Any comments? Okay, so feel free to comment. So again, the presentation today, what we're going to review is focused on research by Simonson and many others, and they've drilled down to critical features of evidence-based classroom management practices. So this logo is from the Florida PBIS network. And the way PBIS is organized, actually, there's a national center for PBIS, and then the country is divided into regions. We in California are in the Western region, and the Center for Western PBIS is at the University of Oregon. So different universities throughout I think there's 5 regions in this country, all support PBIS, and they all share in the research if you go to pbis.org, you could just look at all the resources. It's all there. Anything you want to know about PBIS or related topics, you can find. So this is from this little logo is just a nice visual that summarizes, based on the research, the 5 evidence-based classroom management practices. And you might be thinking, well, I already knew this, and you're absolutely right. There's nothing highbrow. There's nothing like neuroscientific about this, but research really does prove these simple practices, simple but effective practices. So number 1, and we're going to break these down and talk about each one in depth, but this is just the overview. So the first evidence-based classroom management practice is teachers who have organized their classroom, maximized the structure, and developed routines. That is an effective classroom management practice. And you think about that and it's like, yeah, of course. A second proven classroom management practice is the teaching and reinforcing of classroom and school-wide expectations. So we'll talk about that. The third is actively engaging students rather than passive teaching. So I don't know if you've heard about UDL, Universal Design for Learning. That would all fit in under this practice. And then number 4 is developing a continuum of strategies to acknowledge desired behavior of students. And we want to focus on that first. And coupled with that, practice number 5 is develop a continuum of strategies to respond when students demonstrate problem behavior. Okay, so you can sort of see this little logo. The 5 practices are maximize structure, establish and reinforce expectations, engage students, acknowledge appropriate behavior, and respond to problem behavior. So pretty simple. We can tattoo this on ourselves and walk away, but actually we probably should talk about what those look like in the classroom and how to build those practices. So research has shown that when we do implement classroom-wide PBIS with fidelity, we will see an increase in what's called pro-social behavior. Students will just start to, you'll see improved behavior. And as a result, students will produce more and achieve higher academic outcomes, and they'll be more engaged. Well, also, and this is very positive, because the number 1 reason that teachers leave the profession, do you want to take a guess? What is the number 1 reason that teachers report for leaving after a short number of years? Anyone want to call out?
Burnout and behavior problems.
Behavior, it's discipline, absolutely. Burnout, you got it, Pam, thank you. So research shows that then when we do implement evidence-based practices with fidelity, we'll see not only an increase in the desired behaviors, but also, as importantly, a decrease in problem behaviors, such as off-task and disruptive behavior, so that we can teach and do what we it improves a sense of efficacy and joy of teaching, which you're all expressing right now. We want to keep that. But a lot of research shows that we have a high percentage of teachers, young or beginning teachers, that tend to leave within just a couple of years. So hopefully this will help all of us. So I'm going to break down each practice and give us a chance to talk about it and dive in. So the first evidence-based classroom practice is maximizing structure in our classroom. Again, that seems so easy. And we do this in 2 ways. One, by developing and establishing routines, and routines for ourselves and routines for students, so they know what to expect each day. They learn and it's modeled. And second, we design the environment to maximize structure, and that doesn't mean that it's regimented. We'll talk about different ways that we can maximize the environment for learning, but basically we can sort of, the feng shui of classroom management is how can we arrange those seats and the physical environment so that student behavior is improved and we minimize distractions and crowding. So have you gone in different classrooms and seen the difference maybe? I mean, some teachers just have these lovely learning centers, and other teachers maybe it correlates with problem behavior if the environment is out of control too. So the first thing we want to do, we're still on practice 1, is to establish routines. It sounds really simple, but some teachers don't. They just, I was in a kindergarten classroom. It was a wonderful teacher, but she had so much going on that the kids couldn't follow the routines. It wasn't appropriate for their developmental level. So they needed a lot of prompting. There was a lot of off task, especially at the transitions. She was a great teacher, but just too much. So I would advise her as a consultant to do less is more, maybe just come up with 3 routines in the morning and 3 in the afternoon and teach them so that the students know what to expect each day. This picture shows a visual schedule. That's one good, easy way to establish a routine. So when students can predict the events, they feel just like all of us, right? I like creativity and change, but I also want to know, I feel safe when I know what to expect. So one way to increase that sense of safety is to have routines that students know and practice. So what are some of the areas or parts of the day that we want to focus on and teach those routines? So you can see up here, does anyone, so transitions are especially important. A lot of problem behavior occurs when students are entering and exiting the classroom. Like I just mentioned, the problem behavior that I saw in this kindergarten was not during the teaching, but she had students like within a reading, 30-minute reading thing, she had students transitioning 3, maybe 2 or 3 times. It was too much. So transitions, we really want to focus on how to teach for students and model what those transitions look like so they can move back and forth smoothly. How to put it, what are our routines for getting and distributing and putting away materials? What does the routine look like, for instance, if you're a high school teacher in a lab versus when you're teaching direct math instruction? What are the routines and the expectations for whole group versus small group versus independent work? What does it look like for behaving with a substitute? Kids go crazy, right? Most of us, it sounds like, are doing engaged in internship. And so if the teacher set that up, your job is going to be much better, so that students know how to behave with a new teacher, a guest teacher, like Myrna mentioned, and partner work. Any other routines that you can think of that you have observed where it might be helpful to teach students how to practice that routine? Any ideas?
There was something I observed in my student teaching last year. Mrs. Weston, she has been teaching special ed, mild moderate for I think 7 years. And one thing she emphasized to me a lot is that every morning we would start that this is what we're gonna have today. She would have a schedule on the board. We go through the schedule every day at 9 o'clock, at 10 o'clock. I mean, every single day, but at the end she would say, but remember, kiddos, that all of this may change depending on how the day goes by. We might have something here and there, so please be prepared for any changes.
Yeah,
But this is our
excellent.
routine. Because sometimes with a child with ADHD, you have to establish a routine, or if something doesn't go quite as it was, or a child in the autism spectrum, then they react. And
Great
the
point.
one thing can just, they are not thinking right anymore. And then that's
Right.
why we need to establish our routine. I like that.
Last week, with the rain, well, many weeks with the rain, it interrupts students' routine, right? So I was observing in a mild to moderate special ed classroom, and the teacher announced it was Thursday. So remember, it rained really hard in the morning, and I'm assuming we're all in Southern California, and then it stopped. So the principal got on and was trying to explain what recess would look like. So the teacher stood up and actually reviewed the routine. And I thought that was so, he said, it's post rainy day. That means we can go outside. These are the things we can do today. These are the things we can't do. And he reviewed it with them. And just think how that's going to help. That's going to mitigate any problem behavior, especially with that particular group. All right, so also within practice one, we want to establish those routines, but we also want to take a look at our physical environment. That's like our art, what do you call our canvas? It's for teaching. So what can we do? How can we arrange our canvas, our classroom, to minimize distractions, ensure that we can see everybody and flow around the room and give equitable supervision? How can we arrange our classroom? Because we know that we want to have transitions. We don't want to have students sitting in rows, not moving each day. We want to have them engaged. So, how can we fix the chairs so it's flexible? Some teachers have even bought or purchased special types of chairs or little pods within their classroom so that the tables can just be moved very simply. So we want to be able to match the seating arrangement. Whole group is going to look different than small group and independent work. Science labs are going to look different than language arts activities. So how do we draw this in our classroom? Another thing when we're thinking about these 5 parts of designing the environment, we also want to make sure that at all times we can actively supervise. So we want to be moving around the room, we want to be scanning, we want to be interacting, because we know that proximity with students can just walking over to a student can actually decrease a problem behavior in many instances. So I thought that maybe we'll do this at the, does anyone want, I'm just trying to think if this would be good to do now or maybe at the end, but I think I'll save this just so we can get through things. But you might in your mind want to think of a diagram of your ideal classroom for your specific subject. If you're a content area teacher or grade level, if you're a going to know that you're going to be at one particular grade level, or a couple of us are in special ed, how might we arrange the chairs? Where do you want to put your desk? What is do you want to have rows? Do you want to have centers? How are you going to make sure that students can move in between transitions? Any ideas for that you just want to share out? Environments that you've seen that where the classroom environment is actually an intervention for positive behavior? Ryan, how about you? What have you seen in your special ed experience?
In my experience, the classroom that I'm in right now, that we have an arrangement where students are in groups. So the desks are in different groups, usually four desks together. So always trying to get students to interact with each other. The kind of my thing is getting students to participate in their learning and kind of getting out of the way of it. You know what I mean? Kind of
So
getting
maybe
them to get going and get them to kind of bond with each other first, but then also be able to depend on each other for different things in the class, right? I also, for certain activities in that group arrangement, I give the students different jobs. Like a materials manager, there'll be an activity manager, there'll be a productive manager, right? Just though I find those things
Oh my
really
gosh, you're
get them
hired.
I find just getting them really task-based in groups really helps behaviors, and it gets them to kind of take control of their own learning.
The philosophy and your goals are so clear, and I can definitely picture in my mind what the environment would look like. And I see the teacher, not being at the front of the class with all the students looking at you. I can see the way you're talking about how the desks actually maximize student engagement and student ownership. So
And also the environment too. I try to have a lot of student work on the walls, whatever kind of
Mhm.
formulas or activities we're doing, whatever math we're doing. I try to display that in the class, so when the
huge
students come in,
difference.
they know that they're coming into an environment. We're coming into a math class. We're going to be doing math. We're surrounded by math. We have a math wall, so students can see their thinking too. Try to get their thinking
That
displayed
is
and have
wonderful.
references and stuff.
Ryan,
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I like so much how he said, materials manager. I like that, to give the students that kind of job and that kind of title. I like it. I was one helping in a classroom, and I know that there's always a child who's really good in technology. So I would say, who would be my technician for today?
That's
Because
another
I
good
may need
one.
your assistant. So I like that, and just having the word probably on the board saying materials manager, I don't know,
It's very positive.
Jacob
Yes.
Smith, they go like, I'm the manager. I like
Yeah.
that.
So
That's
my
nice.
most outgoing students that tend to have some of the most exuberant behaviors, when I give them a job, and give them responsibility, they take on the responsibility, and they're like, they get the sense of pride.
That is so good.
Yeah,
I'm
so-
smiling big. Another
Ryan,
thing-
I,
Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I just had a question. Are you changing that daily, or is it like a weekly assignment, etc.?
Um,
Or whoever volunteers?
it's usually the configuration we have. It's pretty much how it's been. I'm in my 7th week, and I've kept that. We've done some different arrangements. We've circled up before, so everybody faces each other for different kinds of discussions. And then
think
we've
Pam's
also
asking, like, do you change the role, the responsibilities within those?
oh yeah, definitely. Probably every 2 weeks, or sometimes students will ask to change responsibility. Sometimes they do it themselves in their group. So one student will be like, you know what, I feel better about being the note taker. I think I'd like to do that, so they kind of they'll kind of organize themselves sometimes. So I'm not very strict with that, but so if one student, would prefer to be the to be the us, what I'm saying.
Yeah, that is great. I love it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So practice number 2 here is, and I think that was a great discussion. So I really appreciate that. So we also, another practice. So now we've talked about what our classroom looks like and teaching the routines. We also want to, and this is very PBIS, if you've been in a PBIS school, is establish our classroom expectations. And you've all seen school-wide expectations. They're typically 3 to 5 short, simple statements. They're always positive, what we want students to do. I think, Pam, you mentioned that your daughter goes to Fullerton, right? And is that, yeah.
Yes, Rolling Hills, they have
Right.
the PBIS of the road runners, and be safe, to be respectful, and to be kind, I think are their 3 PBIS statements.
And right, absolutely. So if you are at a school where you've got the school-wide expectations, you can just adapt those within your classroom. And I'll talk about the difference between what it looks like in the school-wide versus the classroom. So if you don't have a school-wide PBIS, then you can create your own. At our school, I'm at Fizzler right now, they call it KSRR. That stands for be kind, be safe, be respectful, and responsible. And in a classroom, let me jump forward a little bit. The difference between school-wide and classroom-wide expectations. School-wide, we're typically looking at different environments, like what do the expectations look like in the hallway? What does it mean to be kind in the bathroom and safe in the bathroom? What does it mean? What do the expectations look like in the cafeteria? So school-wide expectations are across different settings. In the classroom, we're teaching those expectations across routines. So this is just a simple diagram. They have this teacher, it all focuses on kindness. So her expectations are be kind to self, be kind to others, be kind to the environment, but you can just substitute your own safe, respectful, and responsible. But then when you break it down into the little bullets, what does that expectation look like? For example, during independent work, being kind to self means doing your best, asking for help if you need it. What does respect look like during small group? It might look like actively listening, taking turns, wearing your mask. It's probably a little bit old during the pandemic, but just that's the difference. Same expectations. School-wide refers to we teach what the expectation looks like across settings. In the classroom, we teach the expectations across routines. So if I am an 8th grade lab teacher, science teacher, my routines are probably going to be in lab, in small group, independent work, and maybe whole group. Because in a secondary school, we're looking at content, within a subject area. But if I am in a 2nd grade classroom, my routines might be, during reading time, during group time, during pair share time. So it's whatever your routines are for your developmental grade level and or your subject. So this just some keys. When you develop the expectations, they should be observable, stated like, I've seen some schools when I was teaching PBIS at the county, it was really lovely. The alternative program came up with dream, achieve, believe, which are wonderful expectations. It just, when they got down to explicitly describing what those behaviors looked like, it was a little too abstract. Like, what does dream look like in the bathroom? What does achieve look like in the bathroom? Well, so we want to choose expectations that are observable, measurable, positively stated. In other words, not what not to do, but what we want to see. Student friendly, so they're going to be different depending on your developmental age level, and something that the teacher can consistently reinforce. I've seen things, sometimes they fit together into an acronym like ROAR or GRIT or the little KSSR. So you're lucky if your school has the expectations, then you can just apply them to your own classroom routines. And we also want to be sure that we positively reinforce. Behavior science tells us that when we're first teaching a new behavior, so if we're at the beginning of the year, when we want to teach the behavior or the expectation, we want to really overdo the positive reinforcement. And the magic number is that when behavior change tends to occur the most when we give a ratio of 5 positive to every negative. That doesn't mean we're like Oprah Winfrey giving out a car. That just means like way to go. A little, a lot of schools have the positive reinforcers, the little tokens, but when we're first starting, especially students with learning disabilities or extreme behaviors, we want to really overdo that positive 5-to-1 ratio. We want to be authentic. So when we give praise, we want to connect it directly to what we're seeing. I'll give you some examples in a moment. And we want to give the praise during the routines that we're trying to teach the expectations. All right, so practice number 3, and some of you mentioned this earlier, is we want to engage students. Ryan, in your description, you talked about that, focusing student-centered learning. So again, research shows that learning is optimized when students have high rates of what's called OTRs, opportunities to respond. We can stand up and pontificate, but the more we can engage and pull it out of students, the more they're going to learn. So we want to consider what are different ways that we can engage students. And some examples might be individual, having those turn and talks, like you teach something and then you have students talk to one another, rephrase it, having students respond as a group. Maybe some teachers give students little response cards, and they can maybe they're color coded, so they can just raise the response card to indicate that they're following along or they have the right answer. So what are some strategies that you've used in your classroom or observed that you think creates a high rate of response? Meg, what have you seen? Anything?
In my classroom, because they're littles and they're kindergarten and first grade, I usually always do a lot of whole group stuff during the day. So things that have been kind of helpful in my classroom is having, we have token boards in place. So like if I'm doing a read aloud and I pause and do individual questioning in between pages, students that answer questions that are on topic usually always get like a token. And for all of my younger students, that's a big incentive, because tokens means eventually you get a break and you get back out of work. And
you're doing 2 practices. You're reinforcing the desired behaviors and you're engaging students.
Yeah.
And you're probably doing it within routines too. So that sounds great. I am surprised as I go into different classrooms how even with the really young kids, they are, teachers are having this pair share, and it seems to be pretty effective, where they, she'll just, maybe explain a couple of steps and then have them turn and re-explain it to each other. So just shaking it up within the structure can help. Some more strategies that we might consider to actively engage student. Differentiated instruction is a big one. That just means using different modalities like talking, showing, touching, demonstrating, differentiate. There's just many different ways that we can present the content so that we tap all different types of learners. Some students really respond well to computer-assisted instruction. Some students, like Ryan is describing, sort of peer mentoring, or I like that, peer responsibilities. So just have you, hopefully, I think they've had some seminars like this on UDL, Universal Design for Learning. Has anyone, that is a wonderful, there's a whole website that talks about strategies for student engagement that you might take a look at. Okay, so moving along, practice. I know I'm going sort of fast, but we only have an hour. So we talked about establishing routines. We talked about creating a physical environment that's conducive to learning. We talked about the desired expectations, increasing opportunities to respond. Practice 4 and 5 both connect to how we respond now to student behavior, and it goes hand in hand. So practice number 4 is we want to develop a continuum of strategies to acknowledge appropriate behavior. So once we've taught all those routines, we want to continue to reinforce the desired behavior. And the science of behavior tells us the best way to achieve the desired behavior is to focus on what students are doing well rather than to punish or mention what they're doing wrong. That's been proven, and hopefully there's been a shift since the 50s of focusing on punishment to focusing on praise. That doesn't mean that we're ignoring the problem behavior. We'll talk about that in a moment, but we want to be mindful of what are some of those strategies. So the easiest strategy to do as a teacher is just give what's called specific and contingent praise. And that means a positive statement that is not, instead of just saying good job, we want to, in fact, I have a little slide coming up. We want to be very specific. So we want to praise students right after the desired behavior occurs. And rather than just say good, we want to be specific, tell the student exactly what they're doing well. So instead of saying good job, for instance, I like how you're being responsible by wearing your ID. I like how you're being prepared by taking out your pencil and paper. I like how you're being safe by walking in the hallway or by moving carefully between the rows. So we want to be sure to be specific and contingent rather than just general. Some other strategies, just briefly, some teachers use group contingencies. So for instance, like Ryan and others are describing, if you're using table groups, maybe the whole table group is rewarded and works together to earn a common reward. Sometimes with individual students who are having more difficulties, we might develop a little behavior contract for that student. And then Myrna and Meg, I think you both mentioned token economies. Meg, you did. So, having a classroom-wide system, or maybe connecting to your school-wide PBIS reinforcement. Sometimes the teacher or even the substitute will give out the little reinforcers that are aligned with your classroom-wide expectations or the mascot. So those are all strategies, but for the purpose of this today, the most effective is to think about that specific and contingent praise. So let's just try one or two samples as a group. I'm just going to ask for volunteers. So let's say that you have a student named Mateo who completes his essay on time. Let's say he's in 5th grade. Does anyone want to give an example of specific and contingent praise rather than saying good job? What could you say that is specific and contingent to that behavior? Anyone want to try that?
What I would
Mateo.
say is I don't like to say good job to my students. I would say, Mateo, I appreciate how the effort that you put into your essay. I thought that you were working hard on it, and now you have given it to me, and
Perfect.
it's just on time. I really appreciate your hard work.
The effort, I love it. Somebody else had a comment.
Hi. I would said I'm currently working my student teaching first semester special ed in a 5th grade class. So I would know, like I will tell Mateo, great job. I love your writing, and I like how you use complete sentences and all periods. And
Right, so
periods
it's
and
specific and contingent on the assignment.
I like that one, complete sentences, no, that, I love it. I
yes,
wanna
and
borrow it.
because I'm doing small groups and we're learning race, like restate the question, answer the question, cite evidence, and explain your answers. So that would let them know, oh, okay, I completed my writing, I did my complete sentence, and I'm using research race strategies. That's what they've been learning. So that's what I would specify and tell Mateo.
Thank you. Let's try one more. Let's say Donald is in 4th grade and we have been trying to work with him on raising his hand and not blurting out his answers. And amazingly, Donald raises his hand before blurting out a question. Does anyone want to try a specific and contingent phrase for Donald?
I will. I would say after he
Phrases.
gives his question, I would say, "Hey, Donald, I'm so proud of you for raising your hand and not talking out."
Yes, for raising your hand, and maybe even instead of the not, you could say, I'm so proud of you, Donald, for raising your hand and asking your question after everyone has your attention. That's wonderful. Thank you, May. All right, so just simple things that we can do just to change our behavior slightly in response can make a big impact. All right, and then lastly, we have, this is sometimes where PBIS gets a bad rap. I have had many teachers say that, in fact, Santa Ana a long time ago, Santa Ana now is a star in PBIS, but believe it or not, when they were first going through the training, some of the teachers in their union thought that PBIS was just too positive and it was ignoring the negative, and that administrators were not giving students consequences. But just like the science of behavior tells us that there are certain ways to reinforce, there are specific ways that we also want to do what's called error correction. So just like praise should be specific and contingent, when we want to correct a student at our first pass, instead of saying, stop doing this or no, we want to give a statement again that is connected with the behavior and the expectation. We want it to be brief, contingent and specific. So I didn't put the examples up, but like if Donald did blurt out, we want to say, Donald, remember, we are working on raising our hand, and I need you to, before blurting out, raise your hand so that I can have your full attention. So we want to be brief, contingent, and tell the student what we expect, rather than, it works better than saying, no, don't do this. There's other strategies. These are probably going to be more that we look at in the more advanced or the tier 3 training. But sometimes there's something called differential reinforcement, which is a way that we can reinforce. It basically says that we want to give as much attention to the desired behavior and pull away our attention from the undesired behavior. So often we're drawn to focusing on what we don't want to see, and it's really hard, but sometimes if a student is doing anything other than the undesired behavior, we want to reinforce that. So if a student is just not blurting out, we want to reinforce them for being silent. Wow, I really like the way you're listening. That's called differential reinforcement. It's putting the attention on anything else but the problem behavior. And the science says that when we do that, we actually decrease the likelihood that the undesired behavior will occur. Does that make sense? There's a whole, like, differential reinforcement could be a whole college class in itself, but it's just that concept. We want to differentiate between the undesired behavior and the desired behavior. We want to give most of our reinforcement and attention to the positive, what we want to see. Response cost, a couple of you are talking about using tokens. This is a little controversial because sometimes when we take things away, or when teachers use those clipboards, where they clip down, for some students that are too emotional, they can't handle it. So this doesn't always work, but sometimes you can use it effectively in a group. What I would do, rather than take something away, I would just say that that person doesn't have the opportunity to earn the reinforcement this time, but they earn it next time. I've seen that when we take things away or clip down, we often just, students can't get over it sometimes. Have you seen that? Have you seen those, those clipboards that used to be used? I've had people say that the research shows that they don't work for that reason.
Absolutely. The clip charts just can reinforce the behavior because it's attention one way or the
Yeah,
other, negative
yeah.
or positive.
Focuses on the negative. So again, we want to, the science of behavior change tells us we want to always focus on the desired. I have a video that I want to show. Darn, I don't think I have time. Rita Pearson, she's passed away, but she was this phenomenal educator, and she gave a lot of TED Talks. In this one video, short video, she is giving an example with a student of how to positively correct the situation. And we're at the end, so do you want to see two?
She has great videos on YouTube. Just
Yeah,
like Rita Pearson, you find this one, you find another one about
yeah.
her.
Her
talking
other
What's her
one
name?
is
She was
Champion.
great. She was
So
awesome.
rather than show it to you in the interest of time, because we just have a few minutes left, this is just a really quick 6-minute video where she demonstrates positive error correction. And in this case, I think the student either didn't complete their homework or actually cheated on an assignment. And she just turns that around and builds the relationship. And
Dr. Barnett, if you
yes.
put the link in the chat, we can copy and
Oh,
paste
thank
it
you.
and watch it
Yeah.
on our own.
Good idea. Okay.
What's her name?
Rita Pearson.
Rita Pearson.
Yeah, I will do that at the end because I want to make sure I don't lose the PowerPoint. All right. So I also did put in the chat, this is, there's a handout for you that I sent out, and the main handout has a summary of the 5 evidence-based practices, and it's really quick, down and dirty. You can post it or have it as a summary, but it also has this neat thing, a classroom management self-assessment that either you can take or you can do it with a colleague. Simple yes no rating, and you just count up. If you're doing all these things, yay, you're great, but we all have areas, so you just count up, and the area that has the most no's, then there's a little action plan. It looks like this, and you can work with a partner and actually this action plan does 2 things. It has you also observe the number of positive student contacts in a short observation. So maybe if those of you that are working with a master teacher, you might have them invite them to observe you and count the number of positive versus negative interactions you have within a given activity. And you can see if you're in the 5-to-1 ratio, or at least a 2-to-1 ratio, so that if you have more positive than negative. And then in the area, like take these 5 classroom management practices, which is one that you maybe want to focus on, and what are some steps that you're going to personally commit to, like if it's reinforce the positive, or if it's develop routines, how could you do that better? So it's just a little tool to help you, a self-test and a classroom management, an action plan. So we've reached the end of our time. I will stop sharing and put that in the box, but any suggestions or comments before we sign off today? How about this? Which of the 5 evidence-based practices, I know you haven't had a time to do the self-assessment, but which of the 5, I'll go back, do you maybe personally want to focus on? So here they are. So let's just close with that. Maybe we'll go around. So each person choose, what are you going to focus on moving forward? Maximizing structure, developing predictable routines, reinforcing the expectations, engaging students. So if you don't mind, I'll just call on you. Or does anyone want to volunteer? Which one are you going to commit to? Myrna, thank you.
I like actively engaged students because I'm a talker and I want my students to engage with me and to give
So
them
you're going to focus.
definitely give them opportunities to respond, to be actively engaged in the instruction.
Thank you. Meg, how about you?
For me, I would have to say I want to focus on responding to inappropriate behavior. Just because I know my teaching assistant and I can always work on that.
Big thing. Thank you. Ryan, how about you?
Of course, all of them, but I think the one that I'd really like to focus on is acknowledging the appropriate behavior. I think that's something that's missing from my toolbox. I do use praise a lot in the classroom, but I think just being a lot more specific, like the examples that we went through, just being contingent and specific. I think that'll help me out a lot.
Thank you. Sounds good. Pam.
I agree with Ryan. I use it with my own children and have since preschool. Is instead of saying good job, it's like, I see you colored with blue a lot. Tell me about that piece, instead of just saying good job, you did a great job. But also recognizing the positive behaviors versus just focusing on the negative, the 5 interaction, that really sticks with me.
See how that goes. See how it goes. Just try it for a week or so and see if it changes things. Saima, did you have a chance? Would you?
Sure. I would like to incorporate creating expectations and rules. So consistent following the rules and, posting some charts and expectations and rules that needs to be followed in the classroom. I would really like to include that in my practice.
Great. And I see someone that just says iPhone. Would you like to share which?
Yes, I'm sorry, my name is Aleli. Yes. I would be working in all of them as I finish my special credential program. But I think I would like to be more active and get more practice and maximize the structure and predictable routines where I can use more visuals and more structure and organization as well. I think that I would focus on that.
Okay, great goals. Well, I'd love it if you send me shoot me an email and let me know how you're doing, or maybe if you plan to come up, my contact information is coming up. If you come to the final workshop, I think it's either on April 22nd or April 29th. I'm sorry. Trying to get forward to my contact. Oops, there's some resources, and if you want to email me and let me know how you're doing. I so appreciate you coming and participating today. I am so inspired by your enthusiasm and your focus on positive student behavior. You all sound wonderful. I just am excited about you moving into the profession and what you do. So thank you so much. I will try to put in the chat box now whoops. I sometimes have technical issues, but I think I can do this.
Dr. Barnett,
Yes.
where will this be posted again? The recording.
I send it to Dr. Gutrau, who organizes this, and her aide usually posts it within the next week.
So, but it'll be under the trainings where we signed up.
Yes, it should be. It should be.
I've had trouble finding. I've tried.
That's how the system works. I don't have a CSUF email, so that's why you're seeing my other email. In the chat box is the link to the self-assessment tool and the Rita Pearson video. and they should get that out to you. If not, just email me and I will send you a link.
I joined late, so I don't have the tool, if you could put that in again, but I.
Do you
did
see it? It
give
should
to
be in
you.
the chat right there.
Yeah, but since I joined late, it doesn't show what I was in the chat previous before.
It doesn't? Oh, okay,
No.
let me get that.
So you might want to just put it in for the people who were later joining, like myself,
Okay.
just the assessment.
Got it. I believe it's on page 5. Okay, thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for attending and have a wonderful day. Enjoy the finally nice weather. Yay. All right. See you next time. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Burnett.
Thank you
Have a
very
great
much,
day.
Dr. Burnett.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. We will see
Thank
you
you,
so
Dr.
much,
Burnett.
Keep up the
Dr.
good work,
Burnett.
everybody.
Yeah, good work, everyone. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.